I was in the U.S. Army and was inducted in 1968, January of 1968, in Minneapolis, and was released from the service after serving 12 months in Vietnam in November of '69. The 12 months have stuck with me the last 48 years. And if I need to be specific, I would just say that it's amazing how many daily reminders I have that pop into my mind. When the helicopter went over the state fairgrounds today, it was pretty emotional. Sights, sounds, fatigue, smell of smoke, sweat, hot days, sounds, bird sounds, anger, sadness, depression. All of those things have stuck with me since that year in Vietnam. I consider myself lucky. I got to Vietnam in December of 1968 and was assigned to the 4th Infantry Division, which was at that time headquartered at Pleiku, which is in the Central Highlands. And believe it or not, just the climatic changes that were present there versus the Delta were good. I mean, we could at least sleep at night, even though it was still probably 70 degrees. Got up to 100 or more in the day, but at least we could sleep at night because of the higher elevation. The luckiest day was also the hardest day in my life, and I was wounded on February 4th, 1969, when 4 of us were on an online assault, and we were B-40 rocket from a North Vietnamese regular came in and exploded at our feet, and 1 person was killed, 2 people were evacuated to Japan, and I had more minor but superficial wounds. And so if that was the luckiest day of my life, I would call that the luckiest day of my year over there. I have 3 sisters and no brothers. My father was a World War II Navy pilot in the South Pacific, and I had a first cousin and a second cousin who were in Vietnam at the same time. My family was totally supportive. They knew that I had some reservations about the mission that had been given us by our federal government, but their support of me personally was forever. My first wife says that I was a zombie for 10 years. I was in and out of college, depressed, had nothing to do with veterans organizations, kept to myself. Ironically, the thing that was the biggest change for me was when President Reagan got the hostages from Iran home, and the country went nuts and said, "Wow, what a bunch of heroes, and let's welcome you home." And I thought, my goodness, those people were volunteering to be in Iran, were employed by the federal government, and we hadn't seen any kind of gesture from the federal government up to that point thanking us in any way. And so at that point, I got angry, and I said, this isn't right. And we began working on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, which was dedicated in 1983. And then I worked very closely with a Minnesota resident, Diane Evans, who was a nurse, my nurse in Vietnam when I was wounded, and on the Vietnam Women's Memorial, and that was dedicated a few years later. And that brought me out of the woodwork. I had two caps that I could have chosen to wear today, and this is probably just the second time that I've worn this hat in my life, and yet it's very important to me. But I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what would happen on the fairgrounds, and it's been nothing but good. I think I've probably talked with 20 different people who have come up and said, welcome home. I've got three thoughts. One is that the best thing that happened to me since coming back from Vietnam was in 1989, I got a call out of the blue from my medic who was with me in Vietnam, and he said, "Are you preacher?" And I said, "Yes." "Are you doc?" And he said, "Yes." And they put together a reunion, and we got about 12 guys there the first time, and we've had 5 or 6 reunions since then. And that was healing, healing, healing. The other thing that I do want to say is that one of the things that these friends of mine have helped me, even though I often say that, the war wasn't a good thing to have happened, I can now say that I have no regrets, that it would be foolish to waste any more time thinking about what could have been or what should have been. It is what it is. I did serve honorably, and I'm home.